He was begging them, like, don't let me die, my son's about to be here, and that replays in my mind.
A father gunned down more than a year ago. The suspected killer was set free. Wink News investigative reporter Lauren Sweeney shows us how a young woman finds hope in her son while she waits for justice.
Is that good?
It's a celebration complete with cupcakes and balloons.
Happy anniversary. Look, watch.
But it's certainly not how Kayla Stone expected to celebrate her 7-year anniversary with her high school sweetheart and father to her 1-year-old little boy.
Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy?
He rather people call him Chico than Eddie. We passed it down to my son, so my son is little Chico.
Chico was Eddie Powell, a football player for Dunbar High School. Kayla met when she was just 15.
And Daddy wants you to play football.
By age 20, she was expecting their first child, and the two were engaged.
I was 2 weeks away from giving birth to his son, and his cousin said, Chico had got shot, you have to go to the hospital. And he didn't even get a chance to meet his son.
The suspect in Chico's murder was arrested the next day, but months later, he was let go when the state decided there was not enough evidence to file murder charges.
Even after he was released, I've ran into him a couple times, and he will not look me in my face.
So the man you believe killed the father of your child,
yes,
you have run into, he's just walking around.
I mean, I guess.
In the months since we first spoke with Kayla, Chico's alleged killer was actually sentenced to prison on another crime. But she's still waiting for justice that may never come.
I know that somebody out there has seen something, and I don't feel as if they're ready to come forward.
She has a constant reminder of the man she loved.
That's what brings me joy, is seeing the little stuff in my son that reminds me of his dad.
And the father, little Chico,
Let it go to Daddy.
never got a chance to know.
Daddy said he's keeping his balloon here.
Bye-bye. So why was this murder suspect released, and how often is something like this happening? I'm investigative reporter Lauren Sweeney, and I spent nearly a year examining criminal cases in Southwest Florida. Tonight at 6, I'll reveal just how often accused criminals are walking free.
But I don't feel as if the people on these cases are understanding that families are hurting. Their loved ones are gone.
This woman's waiting for justice that may never come. The prime suspect in the murder of her fiancé is a convicted felon, but the state set him free, claiming they didn't have enough evidence to file murder charges.
And it's not just that case. A Wink News investigation found robberies, assaults with firearms, even sex assaults involving children, where suspects were never tried for the alleged crimes. Investigative reporter Lauren Sweeney is here in the studio asking the question, is the judicial system keeping us safe?
Amanda, I looked at an entire year's worth of cases from the last year where someone faced either life in prison or the death penalty. And there are 24 examples where suspects were never charged or the charges were dropped.
Where's Daddy?
Little Chico's visits with his daddy aren't how his mother imagined.
He didn't even get a chance to meet his son.
In May 2016, Kayla Stone was 2 weeks shy of giving birth to her first child with fiancé Eddie Powell, who everyone called Chico. He'd gone with his cousin to a South Fort Myers nightclub.
The last message he texted me said, "Good night, I love you," and I said, "Good night, I love you too."
The next time Kayla picked up her phone, she found out Chico had been shot.
He was begging them, like, don't let me die, my son's about to be here, and that replays in my mind almost every day.
Kayla never got to say goodbye. He died at just 22 years old.
When he first died, like, I didn't think that I was gonna make it this far. I was like, how am I gonna live without him? Like, I seen him almost every day.
The next night, the Lee County Sheriff's Office took this man into custody, Abraham Rivera. A witness claimed he saw Rivera pull the trigger, and the arrest report shows a possible motive. There was a dispute between Rivera and Powell's families, and Rivera's family had apparently made a death threat towards Powell.
After they arrested him, I kind of thought that his case was going to be, solved and it was going to be done with.
But by October, Rivera was a free man. The state attorney's office in Fort Myers claimed it didn't have enough evidence to charge him in the murder. A closeout memo pointed out he had an alibi. No physical evidence linked him to the crime, and only one witness ID'd him as the shooter.
I don't understand what went wrong, because when this first took place, they made it seem as if they were so confident, we got the guy, we're gonna get him.
Powell's murder is just one example of where insufficient evidence led to a suspect in a serious crime getting let go. I found 24 other cases that same year where the state attorney's office either didn't file a charge or dropped the case. Like the case of Augustin Marquez, arrested for allegedly raping a child. Case notes show prosecutors told the victim they believed her, but didn't feel they could win the case.
When you can't go forward with one of these cases, at least it was personally to me, it was heartbreaking.
Teresa Drake is a former prosecutor and professor at the University of Florida Law School. We spent months working with her on this project. She says our judicial system is set up so that prosecutors have a really high bar to prove guilt.
And I think that it should be a high burden because we're talking about somebody's freedom.
Like this case, where a woman was arrested for burglary with assault. She could have faced life in prison, but the prosecutor's case notes reveal what may have happened. She had taken her boyfriend's phone and thrown it at him. He didn't want to press charges, so the state didn't file. But Drake says in her experience, when it comes to something as serious as a murder,
you don't arrest somebody for murder without a significant amount of evidence.
What does that mean? Does that mean innocent people are being arrested, or are criminals walking free?
Usually it means criminals are walking free, quite frankly.
State Attorney Stephen Russell refused multiple interview requests, but did send a very detailed email. He referred me back to those case notes on Augustin Marquez and the closeout memo on Abraham Rivera, but wouldn't elaborate further on his office's decisions. He also pointed to rules for prosecutors set up by the American Bar Association. It says the prosecutor should only file criminal charges if they believe there is probable cause and there is admissible evidence sufficient to support conviction beyond a reasonable doubt.
Let it go to daddy.
It's hard when you're so close to someone and then, they're just gone. And I hurt for him because he's gone for no reason.
Bye-bye.
This little boy is just heartbreaking. Yeah. Since we first interviewed Kayla, Abraham Rivera was actually sentenced to 10 years in prison for armed burglary, and I actually just got off the phone with his mother. She says he had nothing to do with this murder and proclaimed there was no evidence and he's innocent. So I wanted to make sure we reported that. I also tried to reach Augustin Marquez and was not able to get in touch with him.
So what's going on right now with the murder case?
Well, it's a good question. It's still an open case, but the Lee County Sheriff's Office wouldn't do an interview with me and wouldn't comment any further. So coming up 9/11, I'm going to talk to a retired homicide detective. I'll explain what he says he wishes the state attorney's office would do to get more cases to trial.
Okay, that'll be very interesting. Lauren, thank you.
The family of a murder victim says investigators should have done more to get the alleged suspect in the case locked up. Abraham Rivera was arrested for murdering Eddie Powell last year, but let go when the state attorney said there was not enough evidence. Wink News investigative reporter Lauren Sweeney found it's not the only time an alleged violent crime has gone unpunished.
Look, watch.
Closure should have already come for Kayla Stone. The suspect in her fiance's murder was quickly arrested, but then released. The reason? Insufficient evidence.
To me, I felt like they kind of looked at his murder like, okay, this is just another murder in Fort Myers.
She feels the sheriff's office didn't bring prosecutors enough evidence to make their case.
I just want someone to come forward. I just want someone to understand, like, it could have been their family.
But the head of Southwest Florida's Police Benevolent Association says he wishes the state would let a jury decide whether a case has enough evidence.
I think a lot of our frustration is that, there should be some cases where they should take a few more chances.
A Wink News investigation found 24 of the most serious felony cases in Southwest Florida last year never moved forward because of the state's decision that there was insufficient evidence.
Do you think law enforcement in this area is doing thorough investigations?
Oh, I absolutely believe that.
Matt Sellers was a homicide detective for Fort Myers Police before taking on his role in the union. He says once the state has decided not to move forward with a case, it's really hard to find new evidence to get it reopened.
The end result, either nothing being done, the case may not ever get better, and their response to, well, maybe something else could come about. But in most cases, that's highly unlikely.
And many of the serious felonies not prosecuted in 2016 involve defendants who are no stranger to law enforcement.
Like John Davis, he's been arrested more than 40 times for burglaries, robberies, and battery charges. Most of those cases never tried. And last year, when he was arrested for robbery with a firearm, the case wasn't charged because a witness changed their story.
It's definitely a difficult thing to deal with, and it makes the job very challenging.
State Attorney Stephen Russell would not do an interview, but in an email said, as prosecutors, we must adhere to legal and ethical standards when evaluating each case. As for the Davis case, Russell said there was no other corroborating evidence. Sellers says all family members of crime victims can do is hold on to hope that investigators keep working their cases.
I still pray to this day that something comes back up. And
Abraham Rivera is now serving a 10-year prison sentence for a different crime. I actually spoke to his mother on the phone tonight, and she says he had nothing to do with the murder and there was no evidence. We also attempted to reach John Davis, but didn't hear back. The sheriff's office declined to do an interview on this story, and you can read State Attorney Stephen Russell's full response in its entirety on the Wink News app. On the Night Beat, I'm investigative reporter Lauren Sweeney. Wink News now.